Yeah, I think so.
Water, beer?
We're all good. Pardon me?
Water, beer?
No, I'm fine. I think for now. Yeah, cheers. Thank you.
Or do you have Luminosity ported to 99?
Yeah.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. But there's a couple UI bugs, and it's slower. Yeah,
UI elements and all
containers are slower.
Really? They're nice to look at on the side. But
There's like better text data aliasing and stuff.
No, I don't know, it's about a bunch of redraw stuff they did. And when opening new contexts, it's just slower. So, no, well, I'm running for the show because I don't trust it. Like, I haven't really like bomb-proofed it or checked, like been like 100% confident. I didn't want to run into any unknowns because it's like this big Q trip. But it's pretty much there. Yeah, there's no bugs. The only thing holding me back right now is just privacy, private components. I'm kind of not impressed about this. Replicators are like I've tested, and I've got numbers. Yeah, replicators, copying and pasting nodes, and drawing containers is all slower. Yeah. So.
Hey Keith, so would you mind kind of
introduce
yourself?
Yeah. So.
What you're doing, where you're from?
Yeah.
History.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So my name's Keith Lostracco, and I'm not super prepared tonight because I've been here in New York working for 2 weeks on this pretty intense job. So Camille invited me to come, and I just thought I'd just kind of wing it or whatever. I've been working with touch designers since 2008, I think. When a friend introduced me, he saw me running like 4 machines at a rave, and I was running Max MSP into Archaos and just all these crazy things. And then this one VJ was like, "You got to use touch designer. It's right up your alley." And when I found it, I was like, "This is like Maya and Max. It's like the best." And so I just got right into it. And so since then, I didn't have any work with touch for like years. I just learned and did other work. And about 4 years ago, 4 years ago, as I said to Isabel, I went and visited Derivative, and I was like, "Yeah, I don't really get any work. Like people, there's no real jobs for me." And she's like, "What?" And so she called Velo Verkos, or sent him an email from V Squared and said, "Oh, this guy Keith, he can do all this stuff." I think I built FragTool by then or something, or my own version. I didn't release it. And since then, it's just been this kind of propulsion of work and then trying not to work so I could do my own and learn, because I like to learn. And I find I can't really do anything new unless I learn new things. And you can't learn. You can kind of learn when you work, but it's not the same as learning when you're not working. Like just straight learning. So.
Is your background in computer science or something?
No, I went to school for chemistry actually, but then I didn't really like where I was going to be going in life or whatever at that time. So I moved to BC, and I was kind of nomadic for a while, and then I built a recording studio. Long story, I got hit by a car and I had this money, so I built a recording studio from when I was a kid, when I got hit by the car. And I got into audio engineering. I engineered the studio, and it's like a proper studio, and like fully all the physics and stuff involved to have soundproof rooms and proper acoustics. And so I got into audio engineering, and I learned how to play music because I had these ideas, and then and part of these ideas was, it's a long story anyways, but I had some pretty epic journeys that told me basic things about life. And so I had this vision of creating music and graphics that were able to communicate some of the things that were communicated to me without words necessarily. So then I started learning Maya. I got pretty heavy. I didn't work for anybody. I just learned Maya and got heavy into Mel scripting and 3D graphics. And then that's when I got into Touch. And so I had a pretty solid background with 3D by that time. Not super mathematical 3D, but at least like knowing 3D pretty deeply. And then I got into Touch, and then it was T-Script. And then I finally made the change. It took me about 6 months to switch to Python because I was too slow. At first I didn't want to change, like T-Script was just faster. And so then I finally switched to Python. I was like, Python's the best. And that's pretty much my history of learning anyways, from music engineering to graphics. But the science had a big role, like math and physics. And now physics, I wish I would have, I don't really wish, but it would have been nice to stay in school longer for physics, because that's some of my favorite graphic stuff, is to really understand the solvers and understand how to implement whatever physical things in reality, like the lead equation, all those things. Like that it's good. One programming is one thing, but understanding the math is like another thing. And it's like if you don't have both, you can implement people's things, but you don't really understand what's going on. And if you understand what's going on, but you can't code, then you're not going to do it at all. So I really like to understand the math behind things. So actually, well, that kind of, maybe I won't talk about Luminosity as much to start with. I'll talk about the other, well, maybe I'll start with Luminosity. I got it loaded anyways. But yeah, Luminosity kind of was born out of this need to, or desire to not have to rebuild the same thing every time. Like always building these networks for these gigs, and then there was some servers built. I worked on Epic, which was a media server Peter Systrom built for Velo, for V Squared, and it was super epic. Like it did some cool stuff, but it was a pain in the ass to work on. Like it was just like, if you wanted to change number of outputs and you wanted to change, if you wanted to run it on more than one graphics card, it was like really hard to deal with. And it was my task to decipher that and make it work, and I did, but I was like not too happy about it. So I built this. I started to build this, and I was like, okay, we're gonna make it so you can have as many channels as you want, you can have as many outputs, you can have it across multiple nodes, you can, it's like Ableton, like, because I came from an audio realm where you can modulate things, like versus video people, or I guess designers thinking layers, but I'm more thinking channels. So like video switcher and like broadcast, you're talking channels, you're not really talking layers. You might be layering things or comping things, but it's like you're switching. And modulation in audio, you think about like modulating a filter, and whereas video, at least in touch designer realms, and I've been trying to get them to add it to parameters. Rob liked the idea at one point. Greg doesn't like it. It's just too much. But to be able to add to a parameter and offset a parameter by a selected source and not change the parameter's value. So your parameter's value is 2, and you add to the value by whatever your mod source is by a certain amount of gain, and you can offset that, and you can turn it off and on, and you can switch your mod source. So it's like a different way of thinking rather than like, oh, I'm just going to hardwire this in. Or some people might confuse controller mapping with modulation, and to me those are two totally different things. Like controller mapping would be changing the value to, while modulating will be changing the current constant value that was set by the controller. So that's what I built into Luminosity to the best best of my ability at that time. One of the downsides of building things that are pretty heavy and deep is that you do things when you only know so much, and then you learn more, and then you realize how you can do them better, but then you're locked in. Otherwise, you have to rebuild all kinds of things. So there's some things. There's a lot of things. I've rebuilt a whole pile of things this spring to try and improve.
How did you? So did you just like block diagram the whole thing out first, and then just like, oh, I need this, this, and this. That's what I personally kind of need. Or did you
actually, I didn't. I should have came a little bit more from a standard software development perspective, but I came from a what works the fastest. So I spent about 3 weeks or a month testing all kinds of things in Touch, and I did all these tests to figure out what works fastest. Because if I'm going to build a UI gadget, and I want to have hundreds of them or thousands, like it's got to work at 60 frames per second, because that's like my goal. Like it's got to work at 60 frames per second. So I did a whole bunch of tests, and then based on those tests, I started to come up with a method for user interface, how it would work. And as far as layout, I really kind of came from a DAW perspective. I wanted to mix the Resolume kind of look with a standard DAW. And now in retrospect that I've worked with some UX people, that things could be a lot better. Like some of those things I never thought of before. But that's a pretty cool realm of thinking, and it's like not just user interface, but user interaction. What does this what does that O mean? That's not really the right symbol. And those things, like my drop list, like just a few things that could be better if they would have been thought about from a more educated perspective. But I coming from deep but limited areas of expertise or whatever. So I just did the best I could. So I started with building a slider that was fast, and a slider that was fast to recall. Because it had to be a slider that didn't kill my frame rate when I used it, didn't kill my frame rate when I set it, and I was able to MIDI map that slider. I was able to change the colors of all my sliders, and had to have depths of being able to become a modulated parameter, certain sliders at least. Don't really have anything up at this levels right here, so had to be able to expand the slider somehow to get more parameters. And in retrospect, it would have been nice to have knobs. And I do have some knobs actually, but this little UI right here is a very automated UI. So all you have to do. Well, Peter Walker actually built this plugin designer, so he made it easier even for me. He's been helping me with Luminosity. But right now you just set a table with a bunch of names and parameters, a bunch of labels of parameters, their ranges, their defaults, their format, like integer, float, or whatever. And if it's a special type of parameter, like a drop list or a radio button, then a table of names for those buttons or drop list items, and then you just hit create, and it just builds the whole UI. Because I can spend time like putting together all these UI elements, like that would just take forever. So just have to have it. But it'd be nice to have the ability to edit the UI, like some of the new UI stuff that may or may not come out, where you could like drag the sliders around, go into another mode, all that stuff, but I just don't have time for that. So, and then there's some custom UI elements like these sliders, these channels down here, and these channels in effect are control panels. So you have control panels and you have gadgets, and an effect actually is a control panel that's a gadget because it's made of multiple gadgets. Or channels, control panel, or channel gadget, I should say, sorry. They got quite deep. But speed is the biggest one, and so these sliders, so this control panel here this guy here is, I built this, came up with this system where you have a thing called a plugin. And a plugin is anything that has a control panel that wants to interface with the interface of Luminosity, and it will automatically connect with all the control mapping and the modulation system, and now the preset and queuing system. It used to be a simple preset system, but now the preset system was a new thing I developed this past spring. But basically, here, there's a new tool called Plugin Designer, but since we're all touch people here, this thing just controls what's inside of config over here. And then Pete built all these things. But so right here, we're inside of the plugin that's loaded in effect slot 1 right now. If I actually, let me just go up here for a second. Yeah, so this is a new version that has all files loaded from disk, so I'll have to go here. But I'm kind of going from the inside out though now, but just to relate to this plugin, this architecture, because then when I go back from the top you can get a better idea. So you have a plugin, and all plugins have some sort of control panel, and now all plugins can have a preset system. All plugins now have an animation system. Sorry, this was a preset control UI, preset UI, and now this is the actual preset system itself for this plugin. And the reason it has to be a comp is because the preset system can blend or morph between presets. So all presets, if the value is set to 5 and the next preset's got a value of 1, you can have a blend time to morph when you recall the next preset to go from 5 to 1. So that's what this switching is about. And because I care a lot about performance, I have all these switches in here that basically, if you're not using that morphing, none of this filter, and even this filter gets time slice turned off, because there's certain chops and touch, they'll cook no matter what. Even if they're not being selected, they just cook. And I just can't have that. So this is a really good system right here, I find, for fast selecting, using a script chop to set a bunch of channels or a constant, and a replace chop is about 10 times faster than a select chop. And so I always use these all the time. Constant chops, if you don't want to get too complicated, but this could be any number of parameters, could be more than 40, and a constant's only 40. So. And script chops themselves can be slow too. I would never set a script chop every frame, and just that one time. The only time that gets set is when I choose which values are going to be morphed. But I'm getting off topic there. But this config is just pretty straight up. You type a name for the plugin, type the name of the type of plugin it is, the name, how many outputs it has, where its UI path is, which I've stored. Actually, yeah, this is because of an old function that I still haven't changed. That doesn't need to be there anymore, but it still has to be there because I haven't changed it. Where its preset controls are. And so those are the attributes of the plugin. And then here you have the UI attributes. I don't know how well you can see this. So the UI attributes for each of these parameters, this is called pre-level on. Its display name is pre-key level on. It has no range because it's a button. Its default value is 0. It's a button gadget, and it's set to toggle down. And then a val slider M is a modulatable slider. You also have a val slider, which is a value slider. And these are set to float. You just set all those up. And you don't really touch anything else in here anymore. And then you would just hit create UI here, and it will build that UI. And it just rebuilt it. We didn't see it, but it just recreated those sliders. These sliders there's no replicator in here anymore, or never was actually, because the replicator was. A replicator's wrong because you can't have multiple. You can't. They've made it better in 099, so you can, but you can't replicate different things with one replicator. You can by doing this little hack by changing the parameters of the clone, what it's cloning as it's replicating, or changing what. You have this empty clone, but it's buggy and it's kind of slow. So I just have a script, and you just tag all these gadgets in their local spot. And so when I recreate a control panel, you delete all these gadgets, and then you copy and paste them in, and then they get all their values sent. But coming back to performance, so all these gadgets, they don't have an output, they don't have an input. They're just purely controlled or setting values somewhere with Python. So inside you have sub gadgets, and you have a couple of older scripts. Set UI is no longer needed anymore, but I haven't deleted it just in case. Setup still gets used because that was a little bit before extension days. And it has its own, every gadget has its own initial parameters and its own initial attributes for its sub gadgets. And this gets kind of confusing to think about too much, but I don't really have to think about it too much anymore. But basically, inside the Val slider gadget is a slider, is a mod UI, is a field, and this is just a little container to put the mod button and the field together. So you have these sub gadgets that make up the whole gadget, and they have their own extensions. And so basically we just have a few scripts that I put some stuff in this guy because for some reason at that time, well, this Val slider find thing, this is a really useful thing that I wish touch gadgets would have, because their value slider is kind of it, but it's not the same. If you drag this slider, you can just drag it, but if you control drag it, you've got fine. If you alt drag it, you've got finer, and if you control alt, you've got finest. And that came from FragTool because values have such wide ranges, you've got to be able to do that. But basically, yeah, in the end, this Val slider, this slider here, just calls this left click value in its extension, sends the value, and then the extension basically does two things. It sets the UI, it sets everything, so nothing's getting really set from inside. There's two layers to the user interface. There's the user interface control, so what you see, and then there's the value control and what you store. So that way you can set a value without setting a value. You can set a value you see without setting a value that is. And that to me is extremely important because of the whole loop of input and output. When you want to set a slider and you have a preset system, you got to lock it or something's got input and that whole kind of deal. Now you can just set the UI, what it looks like, and set the value wherever it's stored separately, two different things. So that way it keeps things simple. You don't have to deal with stopping the input actions from happening, turning off scripts or whatever it is. So that I spent a long time dealing with all that stuff, or just coming up with that system. And then I won't go too deep into that anymore because it just go on. But I'll go back here, just more of the architecture of the plugin. So now there's a preset system. This new preset system is new. The other one was just basic. It would just change the values. And the new one has the morphing and a much nicer user interface. But there's also an animation system now that is linked to the preset system. So you can, when you store a preset, you can store animation in that preset and then recall all that animation in the preset and morph between the animation channels themselves. So this is my own animation comp that contains two animation comps, Touch Designer ones. that basically crossfades between the two, so you're always on one or the other. And whatever one you're not on, when you recall the next set of animation, it will crossfade smoothly, as long as you have the same channels. If you don't have the same channels in both animation presets, you might get a jump because there's no channel there and it has to create a new channel. So you have to be aware when you're making up cues or presets of what you're going to in order to have no jumps, because if you don't, then there's no really way around that I can think of. And again, this has got like a bunch of switches to make sure it's not on when the plugin's not on, because actually one of the culprits of the cooking forever, no matter what, are these guys, these keyframe chops. They cook, period. Like you can't stop them unless you manually do it. So if I was to turn off this plugin, it's gone. Oh, I rebuilt the UI in Performa. That's another bug, Touch Designer bug. So I turned off the plugin here, and now this animation should all be not cooking. So every plugin that's off is not cooking, because if you have hundreds of plugins or 50 or 20 or whatever, it would be a lot. And this switch should be, oh, it's still on one. It shouldn't be on one. Well, it's not on, I guess. Yeah, no, it doesn't matter. And this is the mod router. I think there's probably a better method now. I built this a little while ago. So this is kind of a complex method to be able to add to channels without having a whole network. So any given channel can get added to all within this one chop. And I had to use an Eval. It was the only way. And an Eval is a little slow because it's still a DAT. But it's slow for one parameter, but it's much faster than 20 if you use 20 different math chops, because you can't set the range of multiple channels, have different ranges for each channel with a math chop. That was a C++ chop. I'm thinking that would be a cool one to build. It's like a new math chop where you can have ranges for everything. And that would be faster than this, I'm sure. And then this is a super simple plugin. This is actually old. I'm just going to go out of this. Here, I'll put a new one here. Generators. What's it? A newer spherical. It's got the new system, I think. So now for users, because I've been thinking about users now, is there's a thing called system inside of a plugin. That's where you put your system. And if it's an effect, it's got to have an input and it's got to have an output top. And if it's a gen, it's just got to have an out. And that's basically where you just build your system. But one thing I wanted to relate, when Colin was talking about extensions, I was liking, I took my Python knowledge a bit to the new level this spring, and got this method going where now every plugin's got an extension called plugin. So inside of plugin is TextDat with actually the plugin's called plugin extension, but ext the extension, sorry, it's called plugin ext, and it has this TextDat as an extension. So this plugin ext, and now I've started to come up with a pretty decent naming convention. In my mind, is now all extensions now have ext. Jared told me to do that when I was doing something for them. That's what they wanted to do, and that's how they do things. So I took that on. But now when an extension inherits from a module, they don't have ext. So now I can really know the difference, whether it's a module or an extension. So plugin ext inherits from plugin, and since this is a clip plugin, not an effect, it also inherits from clip. And in this case, this is a super basic extension. There's nothing here except for how there's some functions that it's inheriting for how it gets selected and triggered when the main triggering system selects that clip, tells the clip to play. The clip tells, there's this thing called, what's is a good word for it. Basically, it's a video selector trigger. So when you click on this button here, it tells the channel. That's the word. So if you click on this clip here, it's going to tell the channel what clip to play. The channel tells the clip play. The clip says, okay, prepare myself. It prepares myself. It tells the channel it's ready to play. The channel selects the clip and then crossfades from whatever it was selected to last. And then vice versa, when you hit stop on another clip on the same channel, it tells the channel the new clip to play, but the channel knows what the last clip was playing, so it then tells the clip to stop. The clip does whatever it's supposed to do to stop, because it might have to unload things, and then it stops, and it just stops on its own, but the other one's loading, and then it does its thing. But this is a very simple version. But if I open a movie, here, I'm just going to go to database. Oh, I wasn't database. Clips. Bank 1, clip line 0, clip 0, plugin. So this is a movie clip. Now this guy's a little more convoluted. Now this is doing all exactly that. It's a pretty heavy one, and it's not super heavy, but it's using all those features I just described because it needs to. It's a movie, so it's got to know whether it's preloading or not, or it's got to know if it has been preloaded, and if it's not preloaded, it's got to preload, and then it's got to delay that message to the channel. So, but this one I like a lot because there's these new. They're new to me, anyways. Where's active? Why am I not using active in here? Change rate. Okay, it's using active. Oh shoot. Well, anyways, one of the new things about Python, not new, but new to me this past year is properties in Python. Not attributes, but properties. And to separate the idea of properties from attributes is where this is an attribute set. Right now it's set in the constructor, so it is set in the class. But if you use properties, you can have setter, setattr, and getattr to basically link properties to. Why is this not here actually? Okay, well I'll go back up. You can use properties to set things when you set them. So you can run a function when you set them, and you can run a function when you get them, all in one call to the property or setting of the property. So you don't have to basically write a function that's following some sort of you need an eval or something somewhere if that value changes to do something. So by just setting, like for instance, so this is my main zone for modules. And plugin extension, so we're going to go to plugin. So here's a property, so active. So when active gets called, not called, but like you're retrieving active, it's going to give you self.ownercomp.par.plugin active.eval. So it's going to get the parameter. But when active gets set, it's going to make this callback's unactive because this callback is looking at the parameter, so we don't want that to run because we get into a loop. And then it's going to set that parameter. So right now I'm linking a parameter to an attribute. And that's what Store Tools does too. And you can do this with storage. You can skip using Store Tools, just do this by setting storage. It's going to make the mode router be on or off. And then it's going to turn callbacks back on. So, and then it's going to do, and then that's why we have nothing in that one. I would have to go to feedback. So this attribute active is going to do all this stuff when you set it, which is a bonus, I find, for all kinds of things. If I was to go to, let's just close this guy, this this guy and browser, and I'm going to load up feedback because I'm pretty sure this guy I shut off when it's not running. So right now it's off. And so now in this plugin extension that's inheriting from plugin, I'm appending now the active property. So by redefining active in the extension that is inheriting the parent extension and using fset, I cannot override. You can override it if we didn't have this in here. If I just slash this out, then I would just completely override active. But if I use fset, now I can append active. So everything that happens in that active property setter, I can now append. It will all still happen, but now I can do self.ownerconf.op system.allow cooking equals whether it's active or not, and I can turn off and on this comp with the active call, which has to happen because I can't remember, there's something in here that cooks all the time. Even if I do this and I do this, it's still cooking. So I can't remember what it was, but probably this cache top or text 3D or something. So, or no, it's this beat chop. Beat chops always cook. So rather than going and finding each one, I just shut off the whole system. I used to shut off the whole plugin. I used to do this, but recently Derivative changed how extensions work, and now the extension doesn't get loaded. So I can't uncook this because now active won't work at all. So that's a little bit of the deep kind of level of.
Maybe for sake of time, can we just go over the interface and kind
Yeah.
of functionality?
Yeah, I didn't want to go too deep in the interface because I can spend an hour and a half just on the
Spend
interface.
15 minutes?
All I'll do is spend 15 minutes, so yeah. Yeah, sorry, yeah, just let me know if I'm going way too deep.
Oh, you got a replicator in there. Come on.
I have to have, oh no, I do have replicators. I do have them. I have them for all these channels because I have to have them too. But they're different than the UI elements. But yeah, I know I went off the tangent because we were talking about extensions. So yeah, the interface. So in Luminosity, you've got clips. You've got banks, and then you've got lanes, and you've got channels. You can have different types of channels. Typically, lanes can be tied to channels, but they can also be not tied to channels. So you can have like a bank that is tied to one channel, so it could be more like a kind of a bin player in like a classic touch designer sense. So right now I have it on selected. Right now, if I have this channel selected and I play this clip, it's going to appear on this channel. If I have this channel selected and I play this clip, it's going to appear on that channel. Same with stopping. I have one thing I still have to fix is in selected mode, my highlighting of clips doesn't follow one. I have to deal with that. But if you're in a normal kind of VJ mode, you could be in channel mode, and so now every lane is tied to every channel. So now we have 5 clip channels created, and you create clip channels here. So I have 5 clip channels. It could be 4, it could be 6, it could be. I kind of keep it limited because UI elements do slow things down. Then you have auxiliary channels, and you route things just like you do in a DAW. You have inputs. Clip channels have no input because they're just getting their value, their data from clips. But clip channels have outputs, so they could be routed to auxiliary channels or a master channel. So now if what did I just route? I just routed this last clip here. So this guy is now routed to auxiliary 1. Clip 5, channel 5, all the channels are the same. You can have inserts on channels, so you can drop effects in line, in series to each other on any given channel. And so an auxiliary channel, I can drop a levels or whatever. This guy, just the GLSL shader deal. And so it's just like a kaleidoscope kind of thing or whatever. And now that's a plugin that a user can make and then drop it on any given channel. And you can turn off the plugin here. That hard turns it off, like no cooking. And if you use that set adder, you can unload all your memory or do whatever. So like if you have a huge project or whatever, you can unload things. And when you select, this is another trick that I came up with. When you select each of these slots, you'll see all those sliders slide down, because when you display like many UI elements in Touch, you'll end up getting, you'll get a pretty big frame hit, right? So I turn on these sliders display value every frame, one frame at a time, so that way things get displayed slowly and not all at once. So now I got a pretty high level now, so when you're changing tabs, it does it all now, which I was pretty happy about. I wish there was better ways. There is other ways around it, and I did do that, and you can store bitmaps and things, but this was the easiest for now.
In terms of effects, I could build my own and upload it here.
Yeah. There's a new. I used to keep all the effects in the project, but since I was starting to make the public version, I realized you can't really have that because it's just too many megabytes. Like the project's too big, it takes too long to load. So now you just build plugins here. They're stored on disk. If I load all plugins, if it doesn't fail for whatever reason, they're all going to be here. So you can build a new plugin. You can just copy. There's an example plugin. The new plugin designer Pete made has a base, and you build off that. But if you weren't doing it, you just copy and paste this, and you build your plugin there. And then now that you've built it, if you saved it to disk, it's in Luminosity assets, not the project assets. If you saved it to disk, and everything I penned was .lmfx or lmgen, if you saved it here, it's going to update this list here, and then we'll update this list here, and you'll be able to drag it in. So, and then I did come up, building effects is kind of not really cool for, I found myself, for like installations or jobs, like, because a lot of times you want to like work on that effect, and doing it this way, you're working on a master and then you're copying it, and if you're at a show or something or doing whatever, it gets kind of a pain in the ass, because you're like, you've got this master and you got this, and it's just So now I have a new thing called scenes. Is more like a standard Touch kind of idea, where you have this container that does something, and whatever you do, that's what it does. And now a scene has a video output. It can have multiple video outputs, and it will be in the master sources list, and the scene 1A will appear here now. And now I've selected on that channel's input. I could route that channel to the master, and now we're selecting the scene here. This is just an example just of noise. Just as give you an example of all the sliders for the demo version. So for some sort of installation that probably a lot of you are used to, you'd probably build a scene, and then you'd select the scene. If you're building a plugin for Luminosity VJs or users to use as an effect, then I would build an effect. Scenes could be effects also, because they can select things. They can select all these inputs are available, or outputs I should say, are available as inputs. There's a master list. And oh, you also have the idea of sends in Luminosity. So if you were to go, so I've got this right now, going to auxiliary channel 1. Auxiliary channel 1 is going to master. But what happens if I wanted to have a clean value of this effect, or of this video, playing and crossfading, let's say between a non-clean value, then I could, but I'm already sending out to master with its master channel. So now I have sends like you would have in a DAW, and now I can route a send to master, turn up its gain. Oh, sorry, not to master, my bad. To auxiliary 2. Turn up its gain now, so now this channel is going to master and auxiliary 2. Oh, sorry, I selected it. And so now if I pull down this fader, it's gonna pull down both. It's pulling down master, and it's pulling down auxiliary 2. But if I set it to pre, and these are audio terms, now when I pull down this fader, oh, it looks like we have a new bug. We have a bug. It should be going down on master right now. Oh no, this guy's selected to master. Yeah. So here, let's put levels on this. I'll put displace. Okay, so this is this displace effect. Now we do seem to have a bug. Yeah, it looks like we have a bug. Wrong one. Yeah. Yeah, we've got a bug. So, well, anyways, you can route different things to different places, and then you can have them pre or post fader. So you could pull down a fader, and where it's routed to doesn't get pulled down, and then only its value will get pulled down. Actually, here we go. Let me do this. Auxiliary 1, auxiliary is on top of 2. Yeah, see, that should. Do this. Yeah, no, there isn't a bug. This can get quite confusing, but it's actually quite useful if you've got layers on top of layers, and you need to have, like for BlizzCon, every year you have to trigger these movies, and then you trigger the base movie, and then you trigger the one-player movie that gets comped on top of the base movie, and then you trigger the other player's movie that gets comped on top of the base movie also, and then you trigger a winner, whoever wins. But then at the end of all that, you've got to trigger the neutral look that was underneath all that. You've got to trigger that on top, so it wipes on top. And so by using this method, you can have the layer below and on top at the same time, and that way. But it's also, yeah, it's coming from an audio perspective of routing. Globals, so modulation. Let's say you've got this effect here, which is like which is kind of like a displace effect that's modulating 3D that's just extruding a 3D surface. Actually, it's not even a 3D surface, it's just a shader, but it's emulating light and stuff. And I can modulate some of these parameters with an LFO. I select LFO1, I go to globals, LFO1 is off, I turn up the gain, it's on a half note now, and I go back and now I'm modulating that bright value at a half note. And if I wanted to change tempos, I would change it here, or I would tap tempos and I have this thing about resetting sync. Like Resolume in a lot of programs, or even Ableton. Ableton's good because you're on a timeline, but if you just tap a tempo and you just tap it, you're not on the beat necessarily. You might be in time, but you're not on the beat. Like if you're really going to be on the beat, you've got to at some point in time, say you're on the beat, right? So that's why I have this reset sync. So now I'm on the beat if I was listening to music or something. That's more from the VJ terms. There's also another mode. If you're not doing VJ kind of stuff, you can be in seconds mode, which actually we're in. These mods are all beat stuff. I haven't changed that over, but for the animation system, which I'm pretty stoked about actually. So if I save this as that preset, I go back to preset 1. So we just morphed. This is just a quick radio button for the presets. The main UI of presets is here for any given control panel. And so you could just type in a name, another preset, and save it, whatever. Turn that edge down, it's kind of noisy. Maybe I'll turn this back up. And save another preset, and you can change them here. But now the new bonus is, and hopefully this will work correctly, is this animation system. So I've built, there might be one thing, let me just check. No, we're good. So this guy's graph comp, and the graph comp's not documented in Touch Designer. It's there, it's a separate comp, and Derivative uses it for the keyframe editor in Touch. But as some of you might know, you can't open the keyframe editor in the perform mode, and it's kind of limited in what it is. So I ended up hacking it, building my own keyframe editor. I kept some of their stuff because I didn't want to rebuild stuff. I was trying to move as fast as possible. So I kept some of their stuff, but I've got my own graph and my own thing that follows my own time. So I'm right now, this guy's in seconds. It could also be in bars and beats. And then I have a couple other things. I can change the clip speed, duration, all from here. And then, what's going on? We might have a bug. Okay, so there is some Windows select bugs that is fixed in the new version of 099. 099 that's not released yet. So now I just select the channel I want to animate, like reflection gain, let's say. It makes my channel. It makes it at, I think I got framed, my own frame. So now I can just animate just like you can in the regular keyframe comp. But now I can save a preset of that. And now I have no modulation because I selected the last preset, or animation, and I recall it. Now I'm animating in the preset. And it's a little slow when it's open, but it's fast when you close it. And if I was really paying attention, if I had this starting at 0, or whatever the value was where the last preset was, reflection gain is 1. So if I set that value to 1 at frame 1, this all starts at frame 1. Now if I was to update this preset, then it shouldn't jump. I don't think we're going to see it with this particular look, but it might jump going back because who knows where we are. But it's not going to jump there, and I didn't really change much there, so I don't think we're seeing too much. But yeah, you can just add whatever parameters you want. You can add them all. Create all channels. This will clear all existing keyframes. That's fine. So now we have every single channel, and we can animate them all, store it in a preset, and then recall one without, one with. And they always trigger from the start. And that ties directly now into the new queue system, which now controls all those preset devices. So you can, every preset device in the whole thing is part of this system. So you can recall, you can have a bunch of effects on all these different channels. You can have clips. It will recall clip. It will play clips, and it will give you the choice to recall a clip preset or not. So, or I could just drag a clip here, and we'll make a new one that will trigger that clip when I call that preset. We didn't have it selected. And then, I guess that clip. Let's see what's going on with that clip. Yeah, I think that clip's just a still. But anyways, this would be it. So then, so now basically, you can have playlists. You can make a new playlist. You can have queues within a playlist. You can make a bunch of new queues. You can rename queues. You can delete queues. You can copy and paste queues. You can update queues. You can duplicate them. And then you have two different modes, or you have a few different modes. You have manual and timeline mode. You have timecode slave. You have save local preset, which will save a preset in the device that you've saved a queue of. So that way you can have, if you store a bunch of queues, you can save at the same time you're saving a preset in there. So let's say you have all these looks and you want to remember them, but you don't want them part of the queue. Then you can, they'll all show up in the preset device itself and be separate from the queue. So you could go back, oh, I wanted that one, and then update queue, and you'll have the look from Q3 and Q5 of just that single effect. Then you can choose right here. This is a list of all current plugins in Luminosity. So this will be what gets stored in the queue. So right now while I'm switching, I have to hit pause right now if I have follow actions. Right now I would hit true. Actually, I don't even have to hit update on there. And now it's actually storing whatever values are in clip channel 1 on effects slot 2 levels and effects slot 4 feedback. So if I have clip channel 1 selected, now that queue is going to store that. This queue is going to turn them both on. Let's just have something on. So just some feedback. Now turn these guys on. Update queue because I've actually changed values. And if I go back to 1, it turned off. We're snapping. There's no morphing because we're actually turning the channel off and on in here. So we would add an effect off and on. So if you wanted to morph, you couldn't be turning off effects on and off. You'd have to change their values and then turn them off in a separate queue. And then go back. So now we've got feedback again. If I didn't want it to snap, I would go like this. Update, or what? I've renamed all these the same. So yeah. So I'll turn this. Update. And so now we're gonna morph.
So we're running out of time a little bit.
Yeah.
I have like
for
a
sure.
summary of like, is it a DJ tool? Is it like a show control tool? Who's gonna get it? When?
It's all of them. That is
It's all.
it. Yeah.
So
It's an
How do I
interactive.
get-
It's an interactive distribution system. It's a VJ app, and it's a show control app, and it's a mapping app. There's a whole. That's what I was saying. If I went off just on Luminosity, I could spend a few hours because we have all this now. In the
Not
previz.
getting into that, but I'm curious to see just like if you were to build a couple of loops and just take us through the process of like in a sense that you have 3 different looks with a couple of effects in each one and just kind of from start to finish like build the 3 looks and organize them in a cue sequence and just hit go. Just because I mean like you say it's so deep, but I'm just curious to see the
Yeah, well, that's what I've been doing. Yeah, I've been doing that all week, pretty much, is building queues. Okay, for
maybe
instance.
before you dive in, what's next?
Yeah, because there's a few other few other things to talk about. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. Well, yeah. I don't know if we should go too deep into making them, because if you really want to make tight cues, I could spend a while.
What's the learning curve on this?
If you're a touch person, it's pretty fast. If you're a touch person, if you're not a touch person, then it just depends on your background, I guess. If you're used to sends and channels, it kind of goes both ways. It just depends on where you're at. To me, everything is very intuitive, but I built it, so that doesn't really count.
What's your plan with the release?
I don't know now. I don't know. I might give it away.
Cool.
Because
I'll give you the better test.
I can't sell it at this point because I can't put enough time into it to really support it, and I can't sell it if I can't support it. Like, it just can't happen. And really, I don't know if it's a really good business thing to be selling software so much, as far as it's a lot of work and a lot of time and life.
So everyone at this meetup gets a version.
Maybe, one day. I'm close on the demo, but see, the thing is, I got to write this. I got to do like a week of documentation just to give it away. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't know. I have 3 versions. The idea has been 3 versions. One is the free version, 3840 by 1080 resolution, and locked to 1 GPU. You can only use it on 1 GPU. The commercial version, which is unlimited resolution, locked to 1 GPU. And the pro version, which is unlimited resolution, unlimited number of GPUs. So kind of the idea. Whether or not that happens, that was supposed to happen by now. And now there's work, I can't stop. There's commitments, so I can't get back to it even for maybe 2-3 months again. So that was one idea too, and then I'm tied to derivative. Like, there's features like you can't do what you really want to do when you've got other people in control of what they think is right, and they're correct. It's their software. It's their prerogative. So I can't really argue with that. But to me, it's like, well, if you could, there's so many things that could just cut out so much that I've done these workarounds for. And if you're really selling software, you could build an open frameworks. Rebuild it. This is a good prototype. Just build it from scratch. That's another idea. You could open source it. I could do that, and then a number of people could work on it, contribute to it. And we did get a GitHub version going, so Peter Walker built this thing where it finds every single comp in the whole thing, saves it all out, and then tracks whatever comps are dirty, saves them out after you've done that, and you push your branch and this whole deal. And I still don't trust it 100%, but it's there.
Can you show us a little bit of all the creative visual part of that on the mapping and
yeah, I'll show you. I'll just do a little.
Do like some projection, like frustrating previs stuff.
simulating the precision.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, is this guy? I think I didn't turn it on before I started it. I don't think it will work.
Is that Raymarch or is that just like ambient occlusion?
That's just ambient occlusion.
Okay.
I stole that from D3 because
Is it
client was like, oh yeah, or like it was like, you see, I was like, oh no, that looks good. So
Is it like distance occlusion or based on the?
It's just SSAO.
Okay, just the Raymarch.
yeah. So okay, so yeah, I actually sent this out as a demo, and I didn't want them to have access to this, so I locked those parameters. There we go. Yeah, so in here I've just built a kind of a standard previs system where you take a projector, when you make an output. Well, yeah, I can go quite a while in here, but I'll do just quickly. Okay, quickly, I'll just be like, okay, so you got 2 outputs, and I have to switch between perform and not perform because my view just got bigger. And when I select an output, I select a projector, I change the projector's position, I change where the projector is looking at, and I change its throw. And I'm selecting, because my output, here's my output settings here. Here's my GPU settings. But my output settings, I've got video input as a source, and I'm selecting from master. I could put a texture if I have some sort of pixel map or something, and I just want to bypass the output. But since we have video, so now I've just got that map like that. And then if this is a 3D map, I would make my throw, whatever, a little bigger. So bring it a little lower. Actually, it has to be bigger if I want to blend them. Make my throw. And then out here, down here is all my specs to give to projectionists. So this is my projection width. Everything's in feet right now. This is my throw ratio. This is my horizontal lens shift and my vertical lens shift. So this is total. So this means like they would have to move the projectors if it's so much, but it still gives them an idea. This also spits, if I hit save projector info, it also spits out its exact position in relation to 0, which I usually make the front of the screen at 0. And then I have a few different modes. You can view wireframe or solid or both or whatever. And then it will blend here. So you can see where your blends are. You can change your projector color. So when you do just straight color, and you have two projectors, you can see your blends, your overlapping areas quite easily. And just move this guy a little bit. And make his throw bigger. So now let's just get rid of, just put wireframe back on. Make this guy blue so we know that's where our blends are going to be. And then you can 2D map it or you can 3D map it. And if you're going to 3D map it, let me just make sure I didn't turn off Cam Snapper for some reason. So I've made my own. It's still Marcus's Cam Snapper, but it's mine now as well because I found you need to have more points and stuff, and I also had to remote control it. So I can't use the new Marcus Cam Snapper unless I actually upgrade, because I have to redo everything I did to that one to be able to remote control it from master node to all the other nodes if they're on different machines. And so now I would just run mapper. Oh, because I'm not in 3D map mode, my bad.
So Cam Snapper is like running under the hood, but you've wrapped it in your own UI and everything.
Yeah. Oh, because I'm on 2D mapping, my bad. Just a second. Okay, so there's Cam Snapper there. And I need two windows kind of to do it. So if I open floating previs, I could get this in one window. And then I could go like this. First I should clear all points on this one. And then select a point. And because we don't have, I'll just move as fast as I can here. Then I would just select all these points. It's nice when you have two displays. And my mouse has to be over this window. If you're running a display with this output, you can still select them like the normal Cam Snapper points. So I'm pretty sure you guys are going to want to see it get mapped, so I'll continue, just get it mapped. But you basically just map it here virtually. And then, but the cool thing is now, well, Marcus built an auto. That's pretty close. I'm just going to move fast. And maybe select these back points. But this guy now has a thing. I think Marcus has built something similar. I haven't used it. But once you set up your blends here, you don't have to set up any more blends. Oh, see, I think I have points. I think I have a point selected here. But yeah, if you want me to dial this in, it could be just a bit of a... No, I've got something extra selected here. I would have to clear points. I think something happened when I clipped that point. It's almost like there's 2 points there. But I won't continue. It's just kind of. But once you set up your two projectors, or 4 or 20 or whatever it is, then you do your edge blends, which are actually in 3D. They're not in 2D. They're not on the output of the projector. They're on the input to the texture. So that way, when you set them up here and you calibrate, you don't ever blend on site. All your blends are done. You've done them once on the computer, and that's the end of that. And like BlizzCon now, it was 3 years. I haven't touched the blend since the first year. Just go in. They put the projector right where I said. They point it right where we said, and then just get the points back to close. And then I have to go in, and right now I've procrastinated. I haven't built a model editor to like edit points, so I use the Touch Designer one, which is kind of a pain in the ass. But you do it, and you just move points because the real model's never exact, the real surface. But yeah, then you would set up. I've got 4 servers here. Changes that radio button. I've got 3 GPUs on this server. I got 3 GPUs on this server. I've got 3 on that one. Then I've got some raster of whatever, 12,000 pixels by 6,000 or something. Then each GPU is going to crop some portion of that. And then each output is going to render at whatever output you specify. And then you're going to say where your first output's going to be. And output layout mode is going to be either horizontal or grid. So if they're all in a line, or if they're in a grid, I'm going to have to do something for an upcoming job where that's got to be a little bit more diverse because it's going to be grid and a line. So that would be there. And then there's a few more things here, but that's the basic gist of this mapping. There's a 2D mapping too.
Sort of like the slave for the master.
The server, I kind of got my terminology backwards, but I call them masters and nodes, basically. A node is an instance of touch that runs on a GPU, and the master, it's similar to Colin's system, but it's different of what he was talking about. There's only one Touch Designer project. I don't save a bunch of toxins though. This is the master and the node all in one. This is a good one to check out. This is the whole project here. So this is Luminosity. This is the dev tool for GitHub. And in Luminosity, you've got master and you've got processor. So master is active when it's master. Processor is active when it's processing. Right now, it's master and processor because we were seeing stuff. And so if I was to load this if I was to load a node controls, and I was to say start all nodes, and I had 12 nodes running, it would push out to those whatever machines, and it would start those nodes and set that environment variable on those nodes, and they would load up. They would know whether they're master or what node they are. They would disactivate master, and then they would set a whole bunch of settings, most of which some are in now database and some are here, that are basically all those crops. We're just looking at storage right now. Master, mode inverse, camera.
How do you like dump all that message across the different machines, just like UDP?
Oh, I've got a bunch. At first I had like I've cleaned up that system quite a bit. At first I had, I got a new one too I'm pretty stoked on. You can push Python objects.
Nice, yeah.
You can pickle Python objects and send out a function, a pickled function, and call that function on the other side. So that one's pretty cool. So it's kind of like hacking almost, because you're putting a program on another machine that didn't exist.
Yeah, all that stuff is like hidden in the documentation.
Yeah.
Silly question, but is this like assuming that I saw generative visuals? So is this assuming all the generative visuals are deterministic and then like rendering them on each of the nodes?
This is both. So if you've got movies, there's a video converter. So you would drop all your movies on here, and then you would open the video converter, and you would say distribute, and it would render those crops and put them on each node according to these crop settings here for each GPU. So every GPU has one movie crop, and then, but if you're a node, if you're a generative comp, this was before they put the crop settings in the render top. I have a function that makes a camera matrix that basically crops a render. So you're not really rendering a smaller render of the same view. You're rendering this view, but this portion of this view. And they've put that in there. Malcolm put that in there since then, but I've still using the old one. So you just basically make the comp. I have it in this projection comp right here. This projection scene. So basically, once you make this comp here, right here, you just use this example. You basically use this camera. It has to have a render called render. And use this camera. This camera is looking at some storage. When that storage changes, the storage here I think it is. When the storage changes, it runs this execute that runs a function that then makes a new matrix for this camera that renders out the portion. So if you're working on a master, like you can't be running 20K on one node anyway. So I have another thing right here where you say whether you're running full resolution or you're running 1080p. So if you set it to 1080p, it automatically makes all these renders the right aspect ratio of whatever your big resolution is by 1920 pixels wide. So you could be working on your local node and make this giant 20,000 pixel comp at 1920 by 300 or whatever it is, and make your interactive scene, hit save, start all nodes, and now each portion will be 5,000 by 4,000, whatever it's supposed to be.
Without the global resolution modifier thing or anything.
Without, yeah, no, that's all been turned off on the nodes. Because that was a big problem, because it's like you can't be running a scene at that size. So you got to be able to run the scene, but you can't. So you can't. I didn't want to, like, the whole point to this was not to be able to have to do things over and over again. So put the time in to do that, build that device.
So you're just basically just sending out raw data and additional data for all your nodes.
Yeah.
And then just rendering
Yeah,
out.
everybody's got crop data.
Yeah.
That's what I think it's stored as, crop data.
So you keep on all your nodes, you keep all your generator plugins.
Yeah, well now the nodes though, all the loaded content or all the unloaded effects and gems are all on disk. No, you don't keep anything on disk on the nodes except for media. The only node that has the Touch project is the master. So it all gets loaded off the network back. So there's only one file.
So it's always concurrent. It's always
Yeah, whatever. So you load up a node. So because that would be a long time.
Is the projector model going to affect a little bit? Like different brand, different events, or
Well,
I don't know myself about that.
yeah, there was a potential client a little while ago. He wanted me to make heat maps and stuff, and I was like, I could do it if you want me to. I'm not gonna put it in there beforehand. I don't know. It's a lot of work. I don't know if I really want to go down that road like so far. Because yeah, the D3's got like all the models of projectors. They're lumens and their heat, like it's they got it all. So yeah, you can't really, but D3 is not necessarily going to be an interactive scene like we can build with Touch. So it's a little bit of a compromise there. But what time have we got, Camille?
10 p.m.
10 p.m. So that's pretty much
Can
it.
everyone stay 15 more minutes for a couple more things?
Yeah, sure. If you want me to.
Fractal.
Yeah, I could. Well, here I was just playing some videos. These are some videos that this new project's now. I was going to talk about another project I'm working on called Coordinate, or Coordinate, however you want to say it. It's kind of supposed to be both. And it doesn't run that well on this computer. I'll open it up anyways, just to around. But these are some videos I've rendered of it, of some examples. So it's basically, I was getting into fluid ever since actually Vincent's. I always call you Vincent because that's how I've read your name online forever. But ever since your first particle comp was the first one I copied, right? Like, because it was like your one like back like 7 or 8 years ago probably now, or even more. Somewhere around there, I was like, oh yeah, that's super cool. And so that was the beginning of that. And at first I didn't even barely understand it. And then I started to understand, went on my own, and I ended up, there's a really good book called, I've got it on here, maybe at the end I'll find it, but it's a book I think every touch designer, any creative coder, or any graphics coder I think should have. If you don't understand everything in that book, to me you're not really quite a graphics programmer. You might be finding other people's stuff and making it, but if you don't really know what a matrix does, and you don't know how to multiply them, and you don't know what all those things, I'm not saying that you should, or but rays and vector math and all that stuff, you're not really in the same depths. And I shouldn't say it quite like that, but it's the truth. If you really want to know and be that, then that book was awesome for me, because it was like, here it all is. You don't need to take, you don't need to go back to school for calculus. Here's what you need to know. You need to understand this, and it's not that hard, but you got to spend a couple months.
What's the name of the book?
I'm trying to remember it offhand, but I got it on this computer. Yeah, I think it's in my books folder. I'll look it up. I'll look it up before we go. It's in Google Drive for sure. Not on this, but on my. But basically, so back to this stuff. So a few years ago, I built this thing called Frag Tool, which was again kind of a copy of this other program called Syntopia that. Or Fragmentarium, this guy Syntopia built. And he helped me build Frag Tool. He gave me a bunch of tips. Malcolm gave me a bunch of tips back then too. And so I initially ported Fragmentarium into Touch Designer to build Frag Tool. And then once I started to understand how distance estimation worked, and for those of you that might not know what distance estimation is, it's actually similar to brute force ray tracing, but distance estimation has a mathematical formula where you describe a primitive, and that output of that formula gives you an estimate of how close you are at any given point in space to the surface of that primitive. So if it's a sphere, this formula for a sphere is P minus R. And it's very basic. So when you're stepping along a ray, you keep calling that formula, and then you keep finding out how close you are to that surface. And really, you're still only estimating, because you don't really ever trace exactly. You're just getting the distance from here to there, which changes with your resolution of your value. So the smaller a value you get, the more fine resolution you're going to get as you get closer. So these fractal programs these 3D fractal programs use distance estimation, and some new games are starting to use it too a little bit. And so I learned about that, and I ended up rewriting the main ray tracer and redoing and making my own formulas. So that was super cool because I learned about ray tracing for myself and real ambient occlusion and how to build a light. Like, people think of lights kind of in a 3D sense. Oh, I'm going to put this light over here, but meanwhile it's just a function of color in relation to the light and the camera, right? And the angle between the two. So it's just a function that is in the shader itself. So I got into that, and I was pretty stoked about that and building that stuff. And then the particle dynamics, and so then I had this vision of particles and distance estimation. And then recently, last fall, I realized graphics cards were getting fast enough for the 3D fluid sims. Like, they weren't so fast before, it was kind of pointless, but now you could do a 200 by 200 voxel, by 200, and it will run decently on a Titan or P6000 or something. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to get back into that. And then at the same time, I found a way to to be able to iterate through a pixel map, a bit map, and find features of interest, and find the distance to the nearest feature of interest. So a feature of interest would be an edge, a simple edge detect. But to find the distance from this pixel to the nearest edge. So that ended up being open up this whole thing where now everything you do in 2D you can actually apply in 3D with voxels. So now you can either use distance estimation formulas or 3D textures of some sort of marching cubes algorithm, some way of taking a 3D model and turning it into a voxelized system. You can do every single effect in 2D, you can do in 3D. That's what I just found out like this past winter. I never really thought of it that way. To me, 3D voxels are the future of 3D graphics. Our computers aren't really there yet, like to really do it, but in the future we're going to describe every single point in space, and we're going to keep them all in memory. And that's my personal view, because it's kind of what's happening in a certain way in my mind. So we're eventually going to go there. So now with these effects, we're looking at a 3D fluid system with a 3D reaction diffusion system, with a 3D particle system being affected by the 3D fluid system, with a 3D attraction system attracting the particle affecting as a force on the particle dynamic system. So you basically got all these points in space, you've got all these forces in space, and you're able to emanate and create vector fields all throughout that space that have certain vectors and directions that are describing force to certain positions and certain features on certain objects. And so now I've got this whole, there's these few example movies I've put in here. This one is, one of them is fluid and particles. It's a little bit chaotic. I think this you can see a little bit better. Stop. So this is a ray-marched pyramid that these particles are being attracted to right now, but that are also being affected by fluid. No, these are movies right now. This computer I can't do real time, but these were recorded at least at 30 seconds on my bigger machine. My new machine, this would run at 60.
5,000, 6,000.
My new machine's P60, yeah. Yeah, I found one on eBay for a pretty good price. Considers going to track our parties and then effectively enough between forces, but we're also seeing it follow the pattern of this 3D pyramid in the center. This one's a little chaotic. This one here, now you can fly you can fly. I found out recently. You have if you can render. This is 100% 60 frames per second at 1080p even through 1,000 by 1,000 by 1,000 voxel grid in real time. No problem. Like it's as long as the voxels aren't changing. But now I've also found a new method. Now that there's compute shaders where you can write to certain voxels, you can write to 1 million, maybe 2 million voxels in real time inside of a 1 billion voxel cube, and probably more now. I was limited by 12 gigs at that time. I have 24, and I think 1 million voxels at 3 channels was about 11 gigs of GPU memory. So now maybe do 1.3 or something, 1.4. And I was also I also found out if you store 16-bit mono channels, you could do even bigger voxels. So that, and then here now we're
That's just like you're lowering the precision to get more voxels. You said 16-bit mono.
yeah,
Instead of 32.
yeah, instead of a 32-bit 3-channel, then just a single density channel, 16-bit, which was enough. This is a real-time render of ray-marched. This is not voxels now. This is a volume ray-marched render of a real-time distance estimation algorithm where the detail is infinite because if we get, well, it's limited to 32 bits, but the detail is as far as 32 bits can go. We're also looking here at edge, 3D edge. So just like you have a 2D edge top, this is being processed by a 3D edge.
Are you basing this off of like any technical papers or?
A little bit, but some of them I've just invented.
Because like you should definitely listen to like SIGGRAPH.
Yeah, I've thought of it because like I've never seen any of some of those things, and I'm like, just basically, yeah, that's 100% real time, 60 frames per second. It's just fluid. And I've also recently found out you can volume march particles, which is a super good look. So rather than rendering sprites, which are always kind of limited, the way they look, you can put particles in a volume and ray march those.
You just go to there,
Pardon me?
How do you way much with particles?
I write position values to a cube, to a 3D texture. So I have a big 3D texture. Yeah, and then I ray march the particle. Yeah, I have to use a 3D texture first. Yeah. But that's the cool thing. Once you got all those coordinates, you got access. It's like,
so you always have a constraint within the box of sufficient size. For whatever.
yeah, which is
Make it as big as
yeah, which is why I've
you need
recently.
knowledge you do.
Yeah, and I've recently started. I don't know. I recently got NVIDIA Flow working in Touch, and they've got a dynamic grid, which is pretty over top.
So I thought that was only for DirectX.
It is,
Okay,
but
but they have the source code, so you ported it. So
yeah, I just got the SDK, and then I got it working in Touch.
because this stuff looks very similar to it, and
I want to get there's a bunch of them I like to get going.
so are you active on their GameWorks GitHub?
Yeah. So here we're seeing these 3D attractions. Yeah. And then this guy's a pretty useful one. So that's just a 2D texture using the 2D attraction system. So that there's no connect or anything. That's just a movie, and using that same system. And this guy, here I'm going to click it from the beginning. This is the beginning of it's a draft of a video I started to base. So that whole pyramid, everything we just looked at is going to be a video that I'd like to make with all these elements. So this is the original ray-marched surface that only the center pyramid is going to be holographic at times in this video. That's the idea. And then this right now is only the 2D attraction system, but I want to combine the 2D attraction system with the 3D attraction system with the fluid all in this one video just as a opening video to this sequence of videos of this idea I have. I think I talked to you about that earlier, Colin, but I got distracted with Luminosity and this. But I couldn't believe, and the new version, it's going to take, right now there's no normal maps or position maps, but the new version is going to use, I made a screen space to position normal to screen space converter, so then I can get velocities that look like they're in world space, but they're actually in screen space. But this is 100% 2D right now, this effect on top of the 3D video.
Which is why it seems like it's kind of running away from the recorder.
Yeah, because it's following the camera. It's part of the camera. But it's a particular look, so I want to keep it.
Yeah, yeah.
This thing starts flashing holographic, and then you don't really see the fluid stuff yet. You come down here, you flow along, and this might have some fluid down in the bottom of it. I like these jumping things. Then we go up in here. This is the cute render tech. A lot of radius image. And if you're having a remember, so this has
uses like screen space, ray trace reflections that accumulates.
Yeah.
You can kind of see it. It's a little noisy, but it looks really nice.
Yeah.
So that pyramid is an SDF, right?
Pardon me?
That pyramid is an SDF.
No, that pyramid is a ray-marched distance estimation. It's a formula.
Like a sine distance one?
Yeah. Sine distance function. Yeah. Okay. I never heard this short form for sine distance function. Yeah. It's a sine distance. Actually, it's unsigned that particular one. Yeah. I can't go inside of that. I can't see the other side. Yeah. It's an unsigned distance function. But yeah, that's I guess some of the things that I've been working on, and mostly what takes up my time are those two things, and then jobs so I can eat, and then get back to this.
When did you start Luminosity?
I think I started it 3 years ago, precisely like right about now. Yeah, July 3 years ago. For the first pretty much what's happened. I'm tired of it right now.
How long have you been working on these techniques, the three-dimensional rays?
Well, the first one was with Frag Tool, which was probably 5 or 6 years ago now. And then, probably good 6 years ago. And then this new stuff, I think I got a volume thing going a couple years ago, but it was too slow. So I just kind of stopped. But now this last year, this was last fall, I started back on this. And now that the graphics card can do it, I'm pretty stoked. So. Yeah, I think that's probably enough. I probably talked you guys your ears off.
Mine's exploded. So what's next for you?
Right now, this 2 jobs I gotta finish or start and finish, and then these videos. Yeah, this is the first draft of a series of 12. An introduction to a series of 12 is my plan. And I'd like to get sponsors for the next kind, and find touch programmers and other graphics artists to help me, not just help me, I should say, to work with to build these videos, because I don't really want to do something in the sense of like, here's some money, can you do this for me? It's like, hey, do you want to do something cool? And I have these ideas, and what are your ideas, and how could we make it something that's not just a bunch of people's ideas, but something that doesn't come from the same place as a commercial. Basically, it's more like a band, that kind of idea. So it's all of us. There's a few people interested, and it's hard to find the time because everybody has to work, right? So that's where the sponsors come in. Because if we can find the sponsors, and then we can get paid to build, then the people will come and
Get NVIDIA as one.
Pardon me?
You can get NVIDIA. As
Yeah, I thought of that
If
actually.
you're using their tools and
Yeah, that would be a good one. Yeah, I've thought of that. I do know a couple people at NVIDIA now. Yeah,
Maybe derivative.
that'd be another one. Yeah, well, that's it. Like a few different people. It doesn't have to be a lot of money as long as the people who work have enough money to live and pay the rent. And it's not about getting rich necessarily. Just creating the time and the means to do it. Yeah, I'm sure I've got to actually go work, actually.
Cool.
Show
Well,
coming
thanks,
up.
Steve. That was
I'll find that book.
Anyone's at Panorama tomorrow. He's doing the Payment Palette show. So
Yeah, Tame and Palette tomorrow night if anybody wants to come. Just live by it's gonna be live by Night Effects.
you got
I think
tickets
it's
for
9 o'clock or something. It's last act. Last act Saturday night. That's what I was just about to look up. Can I go online?
Yeah. It's a Volvo.
Yeah, I got it. I thought I had it on this.
You're live?
Yeah, nice. Oh, you know where it is?
Yeah, it's funny what you said about selling software or using it for free because I was thinking the same. It's like, oh, if you sell something and you have to do the support and the documentation, it's just like all like hell.
It's huge.
So it's a job. It's like either you like make and sell software or like you do your stuff. And it's like hard to do this.
No, it was a job just this summer. It didn't end up happening, but they wanted me to support it for free, like bugs for like a year.
Yeah.
Like anything that was supposed to work, I had to go fix for free
For a year.
for a year.
That's a lot.
It was like that would be pretty tough.
Yeah.
I can't seem to find that book at the moment. I thought it was
For all your rematching and stuff, are you using the compute shaders or
Pardon me?
are you using the?
I have used compute shaders now, but no, that stuff is all,
It's all like just
regular GLSL. Here it is. OpenGL guide, GL, advanced lighting. It's not 3D Game Primer. Is it 3D Game Primer? I think this is it.
like that you have the Carlos Castaneda book.
Oh, you saw that? Yeah. No, that's a big part of it all. Yeah. This is a good one. 3D Math Primer for graphics and game development. I think this is, let me just look at the beginning quick. I can tell by the way they write. This book is about 3D math. Yeah, this is it. 3D math primer for graphics and game
You got it. And we'll print it out and take it to
Yeah. Yeah, sorry guys if I went off too deep, but I end up, I go,
James.
James?
James my car.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, same like you, right? Doing stuff. Like I came from China.
Uh-huh.
Big fan of your work back 2 years ago.
Oh, nice. Oh,
Like
thank
the
you.
first thing, like I was digging into touch design. I said, well, I said you want to build like interfaces. Like and then I saw the blog of your the Luminosity, and I didn't look where I can download this one.
Yeah. No, people have asked me for a long time.
I mean, right now you go way beyond the like you cannot just like drop it like because like, the complexity and it's long.
Yeah, it's so
You go way more forward, like
yeah. No,
wow.
it's pretty heavy duty. That's why it's
Like it's all built by yourself, like
yeah.
that's amazing.
A lot of 12-hour days, 14-hour days.
Wow, for sure, I get that. Isabella, you know Isabella?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she asked me to like install her like
Oh yeah.
yeah, because like she saw my work, I got a show. I will email. I added you
Yeah,
on
email.
Facebook.
Yeah, you've got my
I added you on Facebook. I in China, like the same stuff, but it's basically shade of twig with animation in 099, which crashed a lot.
Yeah, that's why I'm not running 099 right now.
Yeah, it's using the animation and doing several GSL and compiling them and do the 4K output.
It's like, 'cause it's really
do
concentrated
audio
on
visual.
serialized.
But basically based on the keyframe.
I just never thought about it.
Well, I will show you the
Yeah.
link.
Yeah, I'd like to check it out. Sweet. Yeah, nice to meet you.
You're based in Canada?
I'm from BC, but I also I live in BC, but I also have a place in LA, so I go back.
BC? Oh, you live in
Columbia, yeah.
Oh, Vancouver.
Not Vancouver, but
But you
Canadian.
Canadian. I'm Chinese. Good to meet you.
Yeah, you
Like,
too, James.
keep in touch. Like, I may have some other stuff.
Yeah, connect with me on Facebook for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, I already have you.
Nice. What's your name again? George. Yeah, nice to meet you too.
I mean, I played around with touch for a lot of years, but never got into deep, like, to do that. How do you get deep into it, like, besides diving in?
For me, it's just have someone you want to build. Don't stop until it's built. That was basically what I did. Yeah, for everything. So it's like,
Besides like the tutorials I got on the website, what are the ways to get in-depth stuff?
well, for me, it was like a lot of not touch stuff gave me insight into touch stuff. I never used any tutorials in touch, pretty much. One, I think, way back for the beginning. And then mostly the wiki. I've read through the wiki, like every single operator that it does. I read it. That was one thing I did. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because I come from, I guess, my Houdini background.
Yeah, so if you know a lot of that stuff, and then, but it'd be good to get a Python course going. If you're coming from that realm. Python. Hi.
Awesome shit.
Pardon me?
What?
Oh, what was your name? Sorry.
Alex.
Alex. Oh, nice to meet you,
I said
Alex.
awesome.
Oh, awesome shit. Oh, thank you.
I'm not a touch guy. I'm a VDMX guy.
Oh, right.
I'm an XMSP guy.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And I can relate with the need for needing your own UI.
Yeah.
Your graphic stuff though is really beautiful. It's really beautiful.
Cheers.
I was mesmerized for as long as it was running.
Nice. Oh, thank you.
So please post that somewhere.
Yeah, I want to post it when it's built, like when the videos are done.
Yes.
Those were just, I saved them. Those were for me to remember preset, like settings.
Yeah.
So I render a movie, save the project,
Yes.
both at the same timestamp. I could go back and get that look.
Or if you can get yourself a gig in a museum with a massive wall.
Yeah.
That would be much better. Forget posting.
Yeah, that'd be a good one.
That'd be
Yeah. I need an agent. That's what I need. Like because you have to do the work to promote,
Yes.
and you can't be doing everything else if you're promoting, right?
Yep.
So that's my shortcoming.
No, well, we all have limited time, right? So you choose to focus on what you want to do.
Yeah, exactly. Nice. I'm just gonna grab a drink of water.
Alex.
How long have you been doing
Video stuff since like 20 years. I do a lot of After Effects.
motion graphics or
VFX mostly, then motion graphics, then live.
where do you work?
Good presentation.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah.
That'd be very random.
Question for you on how you on Luminosity. I built like a little mini thing for day for night that was just like a
Trying to get into touch.
I learned like
Just because it's
all the problems that you tackle.
exact same
like
thing.
you kind of like encountered like
How are you?
Without having to render?
Like if you have an A/B system, essentially,
And also the VR stuff that you
want to basically have different parameters.
I don't
that you control separately.
It's like, wow, like I wasn't actually experiencing the thing.
I ran into problems like performance rather than like, I don't want to load them. I have to have like 2 instances of the graphic essentially.
Yeah, that's what
loaded,
got me back
so
into
that's
it.
like I can control it.
I like
Any graphic preset can cross the independent controls.
Oh, but
Kind of
stuff
awesome that like
at least
the
once.
controls totally separated from the UI.
Yeah.
So that like is he like if I use a bit on that as a little
Well, basically,
once you got
there's
a
functions
VR,
that set the UI, and there's functions that store values. So I can set the UI and not set values.
you can do the experience.
You want to update.
You get it.
So you've got this plugin.
Download it.
Yeah, because those clips work slightly different now. But the movie player works. So there's only one UI for that.
He's doing a lot of VR stuff.
So when I switch clips, when I select a different clip, it updates
Based on all his work.
the clip controls.
And he's been using
Control panel for clips. It tells it, oh, now you're looking at new plugins.
just to see if you could,
Okay, recall all these values. Just the UI.
yeah. So it doesn't actually change what's linked to the video.
It doesn't change. No, because that is like that's storage parameters that are there. And when I set that function, all it does is move the slider and change the RAM. That's all it does.
So then you just got like, then you have like, you do have 2 visuals running.
Oh yeah. But the servers for CrossFit.
Any CrossFit, and then
But that's what that whole stop thing was on.
yeah,
I forgot. That sounds like a headache.
Stops that from being selected.
I think that's what I need to build in when I was in the street. Like, I ran. I remember like, okay, like I didn't say what to do, but like,
past the
you have to
construction site.
have 2 things running.
Consider
But
going in there.
you have to have 2 things running. There's no way around it, but you want to have separate controls. So like you rip, like that's perfect idea. Like you can take it out, store it somewhere else, and then it doesn't matter at all. Like, yeah, that's and then
It's like a bamboo
setting up
bar.
a switch network.
Right, one shoot up, and then it's basically you just have to.
Huh? Well, that's why I think there should be a team that lets you touch it and chop. That is like a gate. There's no gate. There's like no gate chop. You have to build it like switches and stuff. Like, you know, like I feel like there could be something that
If you have something that's like actually too heavy to run 2 instances at once, what you can do is
It's all there, but it just arrived.
delay
like
your
the
output
alien
and keep
spaceship
rendering.
arrived, and
Then
then
you have that buffer, and then when you want to switch, you just like then read back to the buffer.
I walked through there. I just
swap
felt
it.
sick.
That's a good one.
But you would have to know the time, the maximum time the
And it would have to be done in real time.
Culture to some degree, like
If you're delayed by 50 frames or
get a little flavor.
Well, yeah,
it couldn't be.
It's not even vanilla. It's like ice cream.
Oh, and
vanilla
your
flavor.
controls are talking.
yeah. Input is like other than that, everything's
Yeah, that's sick. That was the main thing I ran into. I was like, you're just like,
Probably just tastes like
like you said, you have all these modular presets and modules and controls and whatever. Like, just run into a limited amount of you got to come up with a system that is not handling it all. So like, I hit the threshold, like where I'm like, you just got to be, it's got to be rebuilt. Like, it's got to be rebuilt. It was really just like a one-off thing.
Tied in with that
Using this thing anymore.
service.
That that's Luminosity is not the first time I built something. It's like there's many iterations before that. And now this is getting to be new from the first version. A lot of stuff's been visual, except for a lot of the UI stuff. Recently, I made one mistake. I stored all my
how people
came up with objects, Python objects, like header and presets. And those are Python objects that are stored.
Not fully.
Stored Python objects.
Because I guess it was updated.
No, everything works fine, but it's super dangerous.
I studied architecture.
Storing a Python object, it's like not a non-native Python object. So if I were to ever click, so we're comp pattern presets were defined. If I were to somebody else's, and go out and save it,
And so
all my objects break. The whole thing. So I think it was this winter when I started these stuff, like, okay, get rid of like it took a bit of work because everywhere it gets called. So now instead of compar is now giving you own advice, even though you see that compar is a dictionary store. It's not an object.
Yeah, it's crazy how you
it's
can
really
keep
hard
all
to
that,
change your
all the-
behavior.
all the- That's like the thing I try to do is keep everything like organization, all what you've done, what you're calling, where you're calling it from. I'm trying to remember it super often, but make it explicit where it's calling to, what it is. Like it's
That's why I try to use conventions. So I stick to conventions. I try to keep big extensions all up.
You do?
Yeah, for the most part.
You need that.
But now
Okay. There's
inside of modules. Take those extensions. Like plugging in.
you want to have lots of functionality for some functionality.
It's got to be different for this plugin and that plugin. And you can't have 200 extensions.
I forget the author. Basically,
Especially for
help
a
you
developer,
eliminate
the idea was that those
negative thoughts,
it's like, oh, I want to build this
recollections,
interactive effect.
but it will help you
It's not necessarily,
pass
it's
them
not part of Luminosity's
through
core.
shift your
That's
focus
part of your
present, your future.
I like most things over again.
Yeah,
I was enjoying when you were going deep. I was like, don't stop. And I was like, God, darn it.
I was
That's
going
what I want to see.
You had a good point though. There's something.
I was like, open that text editor up. Let's see it.
I think even that guy uses it.
I really appreciate that.
Similar.
That was fun.
Yeah. Thanks for coming. I know that you're busy. It's like one more thing to come and like do, you know.
Oh no, I was stoked though to meet some of you guys and meet Camille. I've never met him before. Meet Vincent. Never met him in person.
That guy.
I was stoked. And today was the first day I've actually had time. We were Wednesday morning.
I wake up.
Wednesday was a big day. I would say for like Wednesday. Get up, go over the breakdown, a few hours rest, go load in on site, work till 8 a.m., sleep for 3 hours, go to Portchester, load in there,
And
like temporary loading in,
looking forward to what you're going to
and then
do.
unload it out.
You're
Go
fearful.
load in Portchester, whatever get that on Thursday.
That's probably the reason why I didn't
Get back at one.
That friend of mine, Brian,
Holy shit, that's really
no, that a friend of mine.
So you feeling good?
Pretty good, yeah. The Q player, there's some things that I found out. It's pretty cool. It's working. It's working.
It looks like really clean. Like, yeah,
That's the new level of awareness.
okay.
Like those properties.
yeah, the setters and
Like storage tools. That's all that stuff.
yeah, that stuff's pretty. Like, I had to use it on the most recent iteration of Logic I was working on. Like, I just started using that. So much better. You know nothing's gonna mess up. Like, you know it's gonna cook. And like, I haven't got it like actually.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, I just I did some tests with storage like when I built that preset file.
I see why you have a bad association.
So I stopped. But all you have to do is use those setters, point to a storage value, save a storage value, and use it.
That's the thing. So slow.
Maybe this is a little outdated. The whole interface and like.
Well, you know, like
just you can pull directly from textures and then have like
a lot. No, but at this point, I think
showing the modification.
Yeah, that means
Sliders is
never enough to see
right,
elements,
shader,
but enough to like to change.
I mean, it would have to be
what
like
I'm looking at.
I did think
Make
about
it look like it's something.
like if you did write a shader, you would have to have all the because you'd have to iterate over every pixel for every
stick
single
figure.
That would be smart. Use shader for all those elements.
It's like
no. One shader.
One shader for that's what you need.
Pilot until
but every frame you have to for every pixel you have to go through everything. They need a high school let's use the compute shader. Use the compute shader, maybe you can go from the back to the side.
It turned out okay, right?
But I can think another way too, though.
Okay, well,
Render all that time, all in one context. Take your fast rates and test it 5 years.
I don't know who
the best
it's not.
That's a good idea. Compute shader you can do it.
Yeah,
But compute shader you still have to.
would there be a high startup cost, like a high,
Not one.
like not fresh startup cost, but the cost of starting individual?
You guys got it.
Pretty good.
Because you would make the block size like your minimum element size or something like that.
You can block size the whole size, potentially. Or yeah, whatever, or your maximum element size.
Well, you would section these. Sorry, I was just automatically assuming you would set each lot of each shader to be a element. So then you can separate it out so only one is touching. So then that lets
No, but then you still have to go through every element. But if you had you have to go because you're always going through every block.
So I was assuming there would be a way to map one-to-one a block to a element.
But you still have to go. You still go through every block when you call it. But what you could do is if you had however many blocks that you have the same size as your texture, it wouldn't matter. You can do so fast. You just operate on that board. You can operate on
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, send off the
you can operate on only those quadrants, those segments, whatever you want to call it.
Oh, that's like what I was saying. I see.
And then you'd be able to, you got a slider down here, called a shader.
Only on the slider that's up there.
Only up to that portion of the UI. That actually would be
That would be really good. Interesting.
Yeah. My mind was blown. I was like confused about how you do the projector. That's something that we do all the time. How to send data around to other machines. Like a genius, like sitting your prop mounts. That's kind of like we've done that.
They have the render costs. And I'm just really getting into C++ for real. I did it a couple years ago, got into it, and now this year I was like, when I open up coordinating, it's like, I have to get there's like, I just can't spend 6 months creating perfect little files.
Yeah, that's the thing that's nice with Flex is you can do like rollbacks, so you can like create like building kind of forces. And then the version they're adding like you can like query like neighboring information. Because one thing I wanted to do is like kind of mix strings. So you are like red on one side and blue on the other side, and purple. But then you need to like kind of like infuse the colors like when they fit.
Yeah, that's right.
So you need like to know who is like who's
right.
Which so far was like even, but they kind of
oh yeah. Because that's what I was thinking too, is rather than rebuilding all these systems with touch interface, you just start building DirectX and CUDA, right?
But the same thing that
Just direct interface area.
but everything that's not in touch is it's so easy to exploit and justify and everything. Like,
No, that's the slow part.
Flex, like anything, is always like taking it.
So it's not true.
It's not the same. I kind of, yeah, I wish like they would make it easier to like compile on the side, kind of like doing something or another does. Like you're like your project running on the side and every time you compile, it's just like very similar. Yeah,
That program, what's that program called? Guy from Europe. No, not Notch.
That's just pretty interesting.
I haven't seen it yet. I haven't really looked at it.
This guy is like from the industry that was like super big into like,
Oh, that is Notch.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Okay, I forgot that they're both one and the same. Yeah. So that's C++, not C++, but C. C, regular C. Yeah. C sharp. No, it's C sharp. Or it's C sharp. But you compile. Right on the file. Yeah. Jurek compile. He was all about ray marching and stuff. Yeah. And he's got it all combined. Yeah, I forgot Notch is exported.
Yeah, just with Tim is more sort of like kind of like studio max compared to like video where I feel like we can do so many things, but that's like kind of right.
I should check it out a little more.
Yeah, I'm impressed that like you're so deep into both video interfaces and the dynamics and the stuff. Because like all the UI stuff, like I really don't want to.
When I get into it. I get stoked. I'm like,
See, that's the stuff. I love that
yeah,
stuff.
so I'm kind of multi guy.
Yeah.
But it kind of
If it's not going to be a part of the system, I'm like, okay, I'll integrate this in the broader system. Like, oh, okay, sounds fun.
That's why I called you earlier. Hey, call me out, help me build an interface.
Yeah, I can't rate march, but I can build an interface or something, you know?
But it's deep. Interfaces are deep.
Yeah, well, like I said, like,
Oh yeah, no problem.
yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, cheers. Yeah, no problem. Yeah. Have a good day. Thanks for coming.
Anyway, I think it's like kind of too close from like kind of derivative code to like know what's true, what's not, like all the UI stuff.
Yeah.
So you have to like do everything, so it's like that and like get to
I laugh when you're like, BG frame is a killer. It's like, yeah, it's a fucking killer. Everything's so stupid. You can't never turn that shit off, man. Like, so dumb, dude. Like, no doubt, dude. Like, I'm running that one.
And there's another bug too. If you're going point new dash to the keyframe drop, it won't update necessarily. Or update. It's not gonna say something updated. Cookie doesn't solve anything.
It's like a lot of serious things, like just the animation tone, when you like just output the curves, it's still big because the index is into
Yeah.
every time.
But no, even if you disconnect that index, it still cooks.
But it cooks less. It cooks even more.
Yeah, oh yeah, oh no, it's higher. Oh yeah, no, it's 30 milliseconds or microseconds. It goes down to 5 or 8.
One of your, I didn't see it, like, I saw one of you guys, like, the timeline was like ripped out, was literally just like, it was just like the tiniest little timeline. And then we were somewhere in the project where, like, the David Touch Center project timeline was going, and you just had, like, this little bar that went across.
Oh, that's when you hit at 10. You know, for the pin.
Oh, so that's part of that touch screen. Okay.
Yeah, just hit at 10.
Yeah, I never do that. Okay.
I do it all the time.
Yeah, I was like, man, I didn't have to replace my timeline. That's nice.
Yeah, so you don't have all that stuff at the bottom. You don't have the stuff at the top either. But you keep your project in core mode for real. Rather than having like the dual interface with the core mode.
I know.
And then it scales everything because it doesn't fit. Like it's a 1925 interface, so you put it in the touch network. It scales it. Proper, so it doesn't run the same. So I always just hit F10 now. It's faster for me to go to some those zones. They take a little while to get to. It's like, oh, I gotta go inside of data, inside of channels, inside of channel 0, inside
Yeah,
of
that's
tabs,
it.
inside of
It's like, so
block.
like you can just hit a component and that just pulls
Just
that
F10 and I
straight
go right
up.
to F10.
Yeah, I never do that, but yeah, like, I've seen that before.
And F9 too. F9 goes above and F10 goes beneath.
And because I never really needed to do that for really researching networks aren't quite as fast. So,
Yeah. I'm done on it for a little bit.
so where are you based?
Mostly in British Columbia, yeah. BC, Canada. But I've been working in and I've been working in LA, so I have a place there. I stay. Yeah. Well, it's kind of not mine anymore, but I think it's in the fall. I like LA. I like my house though too. I've been home. I was supposed to